I've been around the world, been in hundreds of conversations, and have a better understanding of the divisions in our country. And now my journey brought me home to Portland, Oregon. In a recent Gallup poll on religious affiliation, 18% of Oregonians surveyed checked the none box, making Oregon the most unreligious state in America. It's also the only state where assisted suicide is legal. Plus, godless Portland has more strip joints and more lesbians per capita than any U.S. city. But Portland is also the setting for a wonderful redemptive book called Blue Like Jazz by Donald Miller. My favorite bit in the book takes place at the then least religious college in America. Don and a buddy nicknamed Tony the Beat Poet hung out at Reed College for a season, befriending the handful of Christian students on campus. That's Tony on the left there. Well, Don and Tony were attempting to engage Reed in a positive way, which demanded grace and creativity, especially in light of Reed's post-final exam debauchery known as Ren Fair.
One of us threw out, I remember who it was, the idea, well, we should do a confession booth. And then at one point in the conversation, I just made this comment. I said, no, we won't ask them to confess to us. We'll confess to them. And it kind of landed a bit like a stone in the middle of the room, and we kind of sat around and looked at each other, and it was just clearly something that felt like it was a God idea.
Yeah, this whole confession thing worked for the Pope, but how's it going to play on the campus of Pagan State University?
We spent a whole weekend, and it seems like that chair was never empty. As soon as somebody came up and got out, somebody would walk up and just wander inside and sit down. The conversation would start again. Hi, it's a confession booth. It's a place where confessions are heard. If it's okay, I'd like to begin.
The experiment at Reed went one step beyond the Pope's apology. It became interactive.
You know, students would just be like completely caught off guard, and the response would be something like, "That's the most effing beautiful thing I've ever heard in my entire life." And then, after a moment of silence, every time the students would stop and go, "Here's a little bit of my story. My dad used to beat the crap out of me when I was a kid. And from the time I was 2 to the time I was 5, and then the story would just unfold. Pain, abuse, addiction, whatever it was, and they would just pour their story out, and we would sit and we would talk."
There's a lot to be gained, or lost, depending on how we choose to engage others.
If we love somebody, we go out of our way to learn the best of who they are.
Thinking about Tony Kriz, Bono, and the Pope, something clicked. We've used up all the words. That's why these followers who are reaching out to others make sense to me. I wondered what would happen if we moved this confession booth off campus and into the middle of the culture wars. What if we reached out to the folks most hurt by we Christians? We rented a space at Portland's waterfront park to join the festivities at Pride Northwest. There we would invite people, probably mostly gay people, into the confessional booth to hear my confession. If how Christians talk and how Christians don't listen is our part of the divide in America, then I want to try a little humility, a little compassion, a little friendship. I did wonder how I would be received by a group generally treated with hostility by Christians. I even met with a local gay advocacy group who were pretty discouraging. Don't bother, they said. Everybody at Pride just wants to party. I'd be surprised if anyone stops by your confessional. But just as I was starting to waffle a little, a friend sent me a pretty interesting email. Turns out God is going to destroy Portland with a tsunami during Gay Pride weekend as an act of vengeance against the Alright, never mind. You guys know how this whole thing goes, but that was according to some local pastor's prophetic dream. Well, now I had to go through this confession booth idea. If I was going to be taken out in a flood, at least I was going to be doing what I felt God had called me to do.
Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been about a month since my last confession. These are my sins. And, yeah, I did that a couple times, and I could make fun of it today, but I mean, it's like, even thinking back where they slide that thing and you're not supposed to really see them, and they know who the hell you are.
Turns out small talk is pretty easy, but apologizing would be hard.
First off, I want to apologize and confess the sins on behalf of the church that I love and I'm a part of, for the judgment and the condemnation against gay people. I mean, Jesus teaches us to love one another. He teaches us to love our brothers as ourselves, and our church hasn't done that, and I haven't done that, and so I want to apologize to you for that. I want to apologize for the church ignoring the AIDS crisis when it emerged 30 years ago, and not only did we ignore it, you know, we piled on and called it a gay plague, and we caused fear and anger and resentment and more hurt in a time when, you know, faith and love and compassion were what we're called for. And so I apologize that we failed our brothers and sisters in that regard.
Absolved.
No, I don't know what to say. It's different. I'm not used to hearing anyone who's a Christian ever saying anything really nice. So
your apology about the AIDS thing really kind of touches me. I wish that more people had that feeling early on, having lost so many friends. Sorry.
There are, as you mentioned, a lot of hard feelings out there from many in the gay community who said, you know, all you wanted to do was condemn us. You know, you said, you know, that AIDS was the scourge that was going to wipe out us because we were the, you know, we were folks who were evil, and we forgot to look at these people as children of God.
That should break the heart of any Christ follower to think that these people who are created in God's image were treated as trash, as throwaways, as people that have no worth or value.
Yeah, you know, I have to be honest, Dan, one of the things that kept me from being a Christian was being treated so poorly by Christians.
Have you heard, so you've experienced personally what I'm talking about?
Sure, I'm going to burn in hell for all eternity is what I've been told. So I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, and so I'm very familiar. I was in the Bible Trivia Club, so I've got a lot of it memorized.
Yeah, your parents taught Sunday school, you say.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you when you came out?
13. I was 13.
So what was their reaction?
They put me in therapy.
I went through a period where I was homeless and I wasn't invited to any sort of family gathering, Christmases, anything like that with my Catholic families.
Do you still go to church? Do you go?
Oh God, no. I haven't gone since I was out of the house. As soon as out of the house, I quit going to church. Why would I go someplace where judgment is thick?
We were connecting, but that didn't mean there weren't some misunderstandings.
I suppose you're queer, you know, so I don't know, but...
You are gay, right?
Are you gay?
No.
You're not gay?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Well, that just knocks me out.
Your lover told me that already.
Oh, he did? Okay. Well then, actually I'm married, so that's just my business partner.
Oh, he said partner.
You know, this is more meaningful to me now that you've said that you're not gay and that you're doing something because you feel like it's a good thing to do. That's nice. That's cool. I appreciate that.
And yes, there were some hard feelings and some tough questions.
It doesn't feel like a very Christian country, does it?
Think that the Christians are going to hate your movie, or?
And where is Christ in the message? And I don't hear Christ in the message anymore.
I don't get it. You're crucifying us. You know, God loves everybody. We're human. Why are you going to do this to us?
And I find it a little hard for you apologizing for the Lord.
Do you feel like you're more able to do that than the rest of us?
You're not wearing a collar, and we're at gay pride.
What are the accomplishments of Christianity?
But the fact that you're apologizing for the whole entity kind of freaked me out.
So why don't you jump ship? People of faith need to stand up and say, Jesus came to save us, all of us, and not a select few. And the conservatives in this country, they don't get to set the agenda for God.
No matter who the person is, whether they agree with me ideologically or in lifestyle, my mandate from Scripture is to love them.
You could condemn many of the things that I've done in my life and continue to do, in all likelihood, that are wrong. But that doesn't mean that you have the right to condemn me and not love me. You have to love me. It's what you're called to do.
I gotta tell you, I was completely surprised by two things: the power of an apology and the willingness of people to engage. I think the apology created the foundation for the conversation.
Lastly, I guess, although the list could be numerous, I want to apologize for my own personal sins of partaking in gay jokes, laughing at them, telling them myself, for being allowing fear to drive me rather than faith, for being put off, being offended in ways that Jesus would not want me to be, in ways that are selfish and hurtful to others, selfish and yeah, well, frankly hurtful to others, when Jesus is really clear about how he asks for me to love one another. And I apologize for not doing that, for not loving you the way that I should.
I accept your apology, and I want to say thank you for speaking up, because I'm tired of people not speaking up anymore.
We should all apologize for all the things that we've done and thought and said, and just move on from there.
It's very touching, the apology. I'm not sure that I'm worthy of receiving the apology. That's the hard thing.
That's very nice, and I forgive you, and thank you. And I wish that there were more people who would think it all like that.
Thank you so much for speaking this to me. I appreciate hearing these words. It does a lot to heal my heart. I was just thinking the same thing. How could Jesus' followers hate so much? And so it's lovely to hear this from you and know that you don't always hate us.
Turns out that tsunami never showed up, but I did peek a few times, though mostly I was looking for nuns in clown makeup. I wanted to tell them I was friends with Sister Mary Timothy. Now, I don't know what you think of Tim, but would it make a difference to you to learn that his mother died when he was 4? His dad and stepmother were habitual drug users, and the first time he had sex at age 16, he contracted HIV. Today I call Timmy my friend. He reminds me that life and people are complicated. Compassion should be given and not earned, and that everyone has a rest of the story.
When I was in high school, there was this boy named Roger, and he was outed, a gay kid, and his homosexual orientation became known. West Philadelphia High was a huge and tough inner-city school. You can imagine what we did to this kid some 50 years ago when ignorance prevailed on this issue. We humiliated this kid at every turn. On Fridays, after phys ed, when all the other kids would go into the shower, Roger wouldn't go in with us. He was afraid to. When he took his turn, we waited for him with our wet towels, and when he came out, we would whip them and sting his little body. I wasn't there the day that they took Roger and dragged him into that shower room and shoved him into the corner. And while he yelled and screamed for mercy, 5 guys urinated all over him. I wasn't there when that happened. He went home. He went to bed at about 10 o'clock. They say it was about 2 o'clock in the morning that Roger went down to the basement of his house and he hung himself. And I knew I wasn't a Christian, because if I was a Christian, I would have been Roger's friend. You don't have to legitimate somebody's lifestyle in order to love that person, to be brother or sister to that person, and to stand up for that person.
We've all judged and hated, feared. Who are we going to be in this life? And when are we going to start being it?
Say we watched the tape, we were wrong, we're going to give that one back.
This is Sheila Hamilton, news director at Portland rock station Kink FM. And she recently traveled to Ethiopia with Christian relief organization World Vision in an effort to find sponsorship for 400 AIDS orphans. This was the first time World Vision had ever paired up with a secular rock station.
Apparently, World Vision has partnered with Christian radio stations like this for decades, and Christian listeners are well aware of being asked to help in these kinds of fundraisers. And they'd never done it with secular radio because they didn't think secular listeners would care. And I guess I find that at the same time appalling and fascinating, because here I was looking for a way to get involved with Africa. I don't go to church on Sunday morning. I'm not a big Bible reader, but I have values and morals, and I care about what's happening on the other side of the world.
And while World Vision had been skeptical of the secular media, Sheila was skeptical of the Christian world.
My greatest fear, I think, was that I would go into these camps where children were dying of AIDS and that I would see Christians proselytizing.
And then what did you actually see once you got there?
Mostly what we saw was their great work. We saw them delivering bags of seeds. We saw them building wells, bringing incredible farming capacity to those people that have never in their lives seen anything beyond a hoe. We went over there with the idea of, like, if we could get 400 of these children that we meet sponsored, if we could do that, it would have been wildly successful. And I thought, how in the world do you get a soccer mom who was worried about public schools and who was worried about her taxes to care about a place on the other side of the world? And they're beautiful kids. I mean, they're absolutely beautiful. And I was thinking about how many of them, number one, hadn't had breakfast. How many of them probably didn't get a square meal. And yet they had so much joy. I brought out these little SpongeBob SquarePants stickers, and you know, they're corny little stickers, but they're clamoring in line for a chance to get this little sticker. And because their clothes were so filthy that, you know, when you press it against them, it would fall off. And so they would pick it up out of the dirt, and all day long you would see little kids holding this sticker to their chest because they were so thrilled to have something that meant, you know, I have this little piece of America.
I thought it was really interesting that while in Africa, Sheila experienced how powerful a demonstration of true love can be.
Seeing the work is so profound because you see people wiping flies from the eyes of these babies, and you see them dressing wounds from these infants who have exposed sores because they were given AIDS by their mother. And you know, that work is so, it's so meaningful. You know, it's just like the kind of work that I don't know who else steps forward to do it.
So those volunteers you met, did they tell you why they were there?
Oh yeah, they know very well. It's Christ's work. We love Christ. This is what He'd want us to do. We're living in His vision, in His eyes, you know.
The success of the Kink and World Vision pairing proved again you don't have to agree on everything to work together to help others.
And we brought the interviews back, and the phone started ringing, and by the end of the day we had 800 people that had stepped forward and said, we'll do this.
That's not bad for a heathen rock and roll station.
Well, we're still heathen, but you know, we do care about other people's needs.
For lots of Americans, all they know about Christians they get from TV. In Ethiopia, things are a little different.
There are no satellites, there's no newspaper, there's no radio. I didn't see a single television set the entire time I was in any of these camps. And so when you ask them what they know about Americans, they know only World Vision. They know only of good work. They know only of benevolence. They know only of this great spirit of these people who have come to help them. So we've got pretty good PR going on there in terms of, like, you know, a national foreign policy. I can get behind that.
We can talk all day and argue all night and get nowhere. But the good news is, and I don't care what you believe or don't believe, loving kindness actually works. Every Friday night in Portland under the Burnside Bridge in Old Town, Christians flood in from all over the state to meet the basic needs of the city's homeless. Night Strike has been going on for 6 years, but I didn't find it till I was ready to see.
Tonight we have about 70 volunteers from about 10 to 14 different churches. Our focus is really to love people the way we think Jesus would love on people. These are the kind of places that we think Jesus would show up if He were here today. That's what Bridgetown does. It provides an opportunity, obviously, for the body of Christ to come be the church rather than just go to church on a Sunday. And then they find out they're not afraid of these people, and these people are people that they normally lock their doors on. Now they're engaging in conversation with them.
In addition to providing food, clothing, and toiletries, these volunteers offer something more valuable: respect and tenderness. It's one thing to stand in church mumbling the words to an old hymn, and it's another entirely to get down on your knees and wash the feet of a homeless person.
I learned last week and I did a couple, and it's just, people just love it. I myself was homeless for the last 4 years, and more than food and everything, people crave hugs and touch. And the hardest part for me washing feet is that we have to use gloves, and especially people already when we're on the street, you feel like you're dirty and nobody wants to touch you.
Really feels good
have your feet washed, massage hands, clean socks.
Our old friend Tom Kretmaker took a break from writing his new book, Onward Christian Athlete, to visit Night Strike.
One thing that was most inspiring to me was that they were not judging the moral worthiness of the homeless people they were helping. Going into it, they knew some of them were going to be drunk, some were high. Were they lazy? Is that why they were homeless? From that perspective of radical compassion, those questions are completely irrelevant.
We encourage the people here to not just come and serve them, but to get a bowl of food and actually sit down and eat with them, actually get to know their name. We want people to know Jesus, obviously, but we're really more, to be honest with you, I'm really more interested that we get to know someone's name first, and then let the conversation go where the conversation would go.
Jesus hung out with the tax collectors, he's hung out with the zealots, he hung out with the prostitutes. That's what he did.
You know, regardless of where they're at in their life and what they've come up against, you can get down there and on your knees and wash their feet. And I think that's probably what Jesus would do if he was here as well.
If we followers of Jesus believe what we say we believe, this is a place where we get to prove it.
There's a lot of people that can just come and, you know, go to church on Sunday, pay their $3, get their fill, but you know, this is where the rubber hits the road.
When you are a Christian, if you're doing it because you just want the blessing, you're not going to get blessed.
You have the people that are like, you have to check the box because you do this, 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 and this, you're going to go to hell for all these reasons. Not just sit and talk to a person and ask them how their day was. And so a lot of people are thrown by that, but it messes them up in definitely a good way. Definitely.
Why do you think these people choose to come down to help out? If you were to guess, if you were to imagine.
I think it's because they're Christian and they got Christ in them, you know? And that's what moves them to do what they do.
Our friend Denise offered to wash my feet, and only then did I realize how difficult this is for both the giver and the receiver. It's a risk to be open to someone else, to be vulnerable, to accept a gift that you feel you don't deserve.
If you know, like the Last Supper, the last thing Jesus did was wash all of his disciples' feet.
How's that for symbolism?
I think it's hard not to be inspired by witnessing something like that. And I think that if you want to talk about what is the best face of religion, the face of religion that is not divisive, but that brings people together and lifts us up, that's it.
If this kind of outpouring of love can occur in the least religious state in America, then I have hope. So I guess it isn't the gospel of love that's dividing America. It's us. All of us. The Lord's followers and the rest of y'all. But after walking around America in this stupid suit, I'm actually encouraged. There are a lot of people in this country who know what they believe, why they believe it, and are willing to give of themselves for others. Sometimes I feel like a river trying to make its way back to the sea. And though the journey is long, I know the sea refuses no river, because I belong to the sea, and I believe you do too.